Okie dokie. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Instagram, hello. Facebook, YouTube, hello. Hope you're having a good Tuesday so far. It is 12:11 p.m. here where I am in Calgary, Canada, which means it's time for another episode of Tuesday Talks with Azren. So if you're new to this segment on my Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, basically this is a weekly segment where I talk about a different language learning topic every week. The way that we select the topic is in the Language Learning Nerds Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, go join it now. Go search in the Language Learning Nerds. You'll find us. In that group, we post a survey every single week on Monday. People vote on the topic that they would like to see me talk about, and then I show up here and I give my advice on it. If you have any other questions as I talk, you're more than welcome to type them into the chat. So without further ado, let's jump into our topic. So the topic for today is how to overcome a plateau in your target language. A plateau meaning you're studying such and such language and you're feeling kind of stuck. You've been chipping away at it and you feel like you're not really improving anymore. So I think that the first thing to think about is you have to realize that maybe you're not actually stuck. That's the first thought I'd like to introduce to you, is that perhaps you're not actually in a plateau. Perhaps you're not actually stuck. Perhaps it just feels like you're stuck because you haven't really noticed any improvements, but you have been making improvements. When it comes to language learning, often what happens is we make incremental improvements. We make these small improvements and we are getting better, but we just haven't noticed it. We just don't feel that we're getting better. Does that make sense? And so often it's just a matter of staying consistent and still continuing your studies, continuing your practicing, continuing your classes, your language exchanges, your Rosetta Stone, your Babbel, your whatever programs or classes or whatever you're doing to learn. Sometimes it's a matter of just continuing because you are actually improving. You just don't feel like you're improving because the improvements have been incremental, slowly but surely, and you just haven't noticed it. The other thing to think about if you're feeling like you're kind of stuck is to try switching something up. Try using a strategy or try doing something that's different than what you have been doing so far. So I'll give you an example. And actually, it's not just different. It's also thinking about what can you do that would push you a little bit out of your comfort zone and would challenge you. Let me give you some examples. So for my Gujarati, I was feeling like I was stagnating, and I was feeling like I wasn't necessarily progressing anymore, or not progressing at the same rate as I was before. And I was thinking, man, what can I be doing differently? What can I change? And what I decided to do was two things. The first thing I decided to do was offer a free Gujarati class every single week, because I knew that would challenge me. When you teach a language, people are going to ask you different questions that you might not know the answer to. And so then you have to go and find the answer to those questions. And so I knew that if I offer a Gujarati class and there's people that are coming to that class, and let's make it free, right? If I do that, what's going to happen is people are going to ask me things, I'm not going to know the answer, and I'm going to have to go learn those answers. And therefore, I'm going to learn more than I was before. So that was a way to challenge myself and put myself out of my comfort zone. And after doing that, I noticed my Gujarati started to improve once again. Another example is some of you might have heard of the YouTube channel that is called Easy Languages. Some of you may have heard of it. They have these interview style of videos that they do in a variety of languages. They have French and Spanish and Italian and Greek and Mandarin and lots of different languages they offer. And with this channel, I'm going to be making and have already recorded some, and we're just in the midst of the editing process and everything. I made some Gujarati videos. So I've interviewed some Gujarati people. And that was another thing that was different. It was challenging. It made me nervous. It has me interacting with other Gujarati people. So, and talking to them about a variety of topics that I've never really talked about before. So then that pushes my vocabulary. That's a little bit more challenging. So when I've been challenging myself in Gujarati, I've noticed again that my level is starting to improve, and I actually am getting better. Versus for the longest time, probably for a good, maybe a year even, my level basically had stagnated. Does that make sense? It's kind of like this one person that I knew who had practiced. He'd practiced singing for a long time. He would kind of practice, and he'd work at it, and he'd think about it, and he would practice it by himself, and he did improve based on what he told me. Based on what this guy told me, he did improve in singing, and he would get better, but he wasn't really making any serious progress. And the reason was that even though he was practicing, even though he was trying to get better at singing, he hadn't done anything that was outside of his comfort zone. He'd stayed within his comfort zone and just kind of practiced his singing, and that's just what he did. And the thing that ultimately ended up helping him sing even better was starting to get out of his comfort zone. And in his case, I actually don't remember what he did. I think he went and I forget if he took a lesson, or I don't know what he did actually. Regardless, if you're not going out of your comfort zone, you're going to if you're not going out of your comfort zone, your progress will be a little bit slower. But if you are going out of your comfort zone with your language learning, you will make faster progress. If you're challenging yourself, doing things that are a little bit scary for you, that is going to help you to progress a little bit faster, I find. And so that's a really, really big piece of advice that I can give you. And I think it'll help. I really think it'll help a lot of you. Another thing I would just question as well, and this may be the last thing I can say on this topic for today, at least that's what's coming to mind as of right now, is I would think about how long you've been practicing or studying your target language. Often people feel, how do I say this? Often they feel like they're not making progress, but they haven't, whatever level they're at now, they haven't really been at that level for a very long time. So this is a little bit hard to explain, actually. It's a half-baked thought. You know what? I'm going to change that last thought. Let me think on that last thought. Maybe I'll finish up by saying this. Often when you're feeling stuck, it's a matter of just getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that are different, that are challenging you, and combining that with patience. Combining that with understanding it's probably going to take a long time. Especially if you're at more of an advanced or even like an intermediate kind of level, intermediate, upper intermediate, it's especially going to take longer there. Because think of it this way. When you're a beginner in the language, let's say you just started learning Hungarian today. You just started that today. Officially, you know 0 things. So when you learn how to say, hi, how are you? My name is Azren, you immediately know 100% more than you used to know before. Does that make sense? You now know 1 thing when you used to know 0. You've increased your knowledge by 100%. And all of a sudden, you can now introduce yourself, whereas before you could do absolutely nothing. And the more you progress in the language, the more you know in a language and the more you progress, each new thing you learn feels like a smaller piece because you know this much and you just learn this tiny little speck. Versus in the beginning, when you know nothing, that tiny little speck you learn feels a heck of a lot more valuable, and you feel like you've progressed more because you're coming from the perspective of knowing nothing or very little in that language. But when you're at an intermediate phase or upper intermediate, even advanced, the more you know, every time you learn something new, you might not feel the same level of accomplishment, the same level of, oh, good job, Azren, the same level of excitement. You might not feel that you might not feel the same emotions trigger in your body. And so it's not as rewarding. And so it's not that you're stuck, it's just that you're at a point where when you learn one new thing, a new word, a new phrase, a new expression, you just don't feel that same dopamine hit, or I don't know what the right chemical is. You don't feel that same hit inside of your body. So sometimes it's less to do with not progressing, and it's more to do with a matter of perspective. Okay, let me see if there's any questions that people have. Let me just kind of flip through the chats here. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in. Let's see. Let's start on Facebook. Oh, Facebook's quiet today. Only a couple people on my Facebook page. That's fine. Let's look on the Facebook group. Facebook group's pretty quiet today too, actually. Pretty quiet. That's all right. I don't see much there. Let's hop over to YouTube. Hello, Demi Horn Vitality. Nice to see you. I think it's the first time I've seen you in the chat, so welcome. No question on his end. That's fine. And let's look over to Instagram. Let me just scroll a bit if there's any questions. No questions today. All right, sounds good. Nice and short episode then. So everybody, thank you for watching us. I appreciate your attention as always. Let's wrap this up. Instagram, let's say goodbye to you first. So see you, Instagram. Bye-bye. Okay, and let's end Facebook next. So end. And there we go. And let's say goodbye to YouTube. See you, YouTube. Nice and short episode. Bye-bye.